we should that somebody should make a movie called the JKD Kid, right?
Okay.
Okay, because like one of my pet peeves, I'm sure you've heard me say this before, is that it pisses me off that everybody knows who Bruce Lee is,
Mm,
but then that same amount of people don't know about his art,
yeah.
right? So Tim was saying we should make a movie called the JKD Kid. So I went to Chat GPT and I said, "Hey, give me an idea, right, for a movie called the JKD Kid." Ultimately, here's what it says. It says that like the climax of the film would be the kid um, becoming a grandmaster,
The JKD
a
Grandmaster. Wow.
JKD grandmaster,
The
right?
first one.
So yeah, so I'm telling you, Paul, that everybody's freaking out over AI and what have you. My only dealings with AI revolve around martial art, and I'm
Mm,
not scared of it taking over anything because it's dumb.
mhm.
Okay, as far as I see it. Anyhow,
Yeah. I
okay.
just want somebody to do my laundry for me. Can we get a robot that does that?
All right, let's get official and welcome everyone to what episode are we on? 269, 270? Now I can't even remember. But anyhow, it is the famous one with none other than Paul Nunzio. Somebody that I, you have to tell me, because I know I definitely met you on Facebook or whatever, but were we ever physically in the same seminar room?
You know, I feel like we were because you're so familiar to me. And when I first saw your podcast, I'm like, I know him.
Yeah.
So it would have had to have been in Cortland with Sifu Kevin,
No. You know where it might have been?
where,
At New Breed,
oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. It could have been New Breed. Yeah.
right? It,
Yeah.
it, it might be. Anyhow,
Okay.
this is my official welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues. And first things first, thank you for your decades of service to the people of New York and New Jersey and now South Carolina, but by
Thank
extension
you.
to the people of the United States of America. Um, it's a pleasure for me to come across somebody like you. Now, here's what you guys don't know. Paul said I usually ask my dialogue partners, like six kind of not even in-depth questions. But Paul sent me his
Uh,
resume.
I
I
already
would
did it.
I would hire you if I right.
Uh,
I would definitely hire you, but I am really happy that you sent me that because it fired me up because I'm always interested in hearing from because I have no law enforcement background.
mm,
I've been teaching Jeet Kune professionally for 30 something years. And I've had law enforcement people as students, but
right.
being an officer yourself, being a law enforcement professional yourself, what I am interested in hearing is what that does, how that shapes or colors or informs your approach to martial art in general and then to Jeet Kune Do specifically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's actually a great question. I think being in law enforcement, uh, it kind of keeps you on that realistic path. So
Right.
it kind of turns you away from the fantasy, what I call the fantasy martial arts,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything that I learn needs to be applicable immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's got to be simple and it's got to be direct,
Yeah.
especially as a law enforcement educator. When I'm teaching people basically self defense for law enforcement, and we call it defensive tactics or control tactics,
Right.
it's got to be stuff that people can learn easily, and it has to be able to be effective on the street.
Yeah.
So for me, JKD was, I was already involved in it, but that's why I stuck with it because it's a self defense martial art where it doesn't hide anything behind any fanciful, katas or dances or anything like that. It's straightforward. It's, this is what you need to do, and, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to some of the other martial arts that I see, and it's more, I don't know what the word is, but maybe it's more flavorful in its appearance. It looks prettier. But for me, that's not what I'm looking for.
Right.
I'm looking for stuff that's going to be effective right away. And
right.
because it's the reality of life with a cop, that's going to save your life.
Mm-hmm. So that immediacy factor, because you are cross-trained in other things. You're certified you're a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, you're in Krav Maga, all that stuff. How do they have inherent immediacy components, or do you have to put them in?
Yeah, so Krav Maga, really, that's what Krav Maga is.
Mm-hmm.
It's really to the point. It's explosive and violent. So it's aspects of it is great, but aspects of it is not so great because we're in the public eye.
Yeah.
So if I'm getting into a boxing match with someone on the street, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, right? I'm supposed to be controlling someone, putting them in handcuffs, and taking them to jail. Right. If I'm getting involved in a fist fight with somebody, I'm not doing my job. I'm emotionally involved in some sort of ego thing, and a lot of cops get in trouble because they end up doing that sort of stuff. So yeah, Krav Maga is very good, and the jiu-jitsu is great too, and that's become the go-to art in
Why
law
is that?
enforcement now.
Why is that?
Well, I think it goes back to the jiu-jitsu marketing. They have brilliant marketing.
Yeah.
You have I think it's Henner and his brother. They run that Gracie Tactics program for cops, and the marketing is great. They know how to sell it to different departments and stuff like that. And they look at it as jiu-jitsu is what do they call it? The gentle art.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gentle.
No.
I've got plenty of injuries to tell you. It's not gentle. There's nothing gentle about it, right? But they market it as the gentle art. Anyone can take jiu-jitsu, right? It's for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So their marketing is great, and not to say that the art is not good. It is. The ground control stuff when you're on top is awesome. I mean, there's nothing like it. And I think it really has saved a lot of cops out in the street. The problem with it, though, is a lot of, especially, the Gracies teaching it, they don't have law enforcement experience. So they're teaching stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. I saw a video the other day on Facebook. One of my Facebook friends posted it, and it was a cop, and it looked like a Walmart or something, and ends up wrestling this woman to the ground, and puts her into an armbar on his back. I'm like, what is that? I started laughing out loud because I was like, what? Yeah. He had so many opportunities to handcuff him and control this person, but he went to an armbar on his back.
Because that's the signature move.
Right. And that's what they're taught. Right. Now, he might be a YouTube black belt. I don't know. But, that's not what you should be doing. You're exposing yourself to some other person that might come over and soccer kick you in the head. Yeah. They might be reaching for your weapon. I mean, there's so many things that you have to think about and react to as a police officer. You can't be putting yourselves into a compromising position. Right. It's great for sport, but street, we have to think about this.
Yeah. So interesting. So that's not drilled into their heads then? I mean, either at the jiu-jitsu school or then in law enforcement training. You're right. Jiu-jitsu, you're skilled in jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu's signature move is the armbar, but it doesn't have a place really in subduing somebody at Walmart.
Not really. No. I mean, unless you're going to just pop the arm and get up, you can't lay there with it and wait for them to tap out.
Right. But what I'm
You know
saying
what I
is that
mean?
in training at a jiu-jitsu school, if you know you
Oh,
have law enforcement people in your class,
right,
or then at the law enforcement training agency,
right.
is that thing about the armbar not drilled into their heads?
So, okay, so I think if someone is a police officer and they're taking jujitsu classes, I think that's great. But they have to be able to separate the sport of jujitsu from the self-defense of jujitsu. And they have to be able to take the techniques that your instructor is giving you and adjust them to what we're doing. And we did that when I was an instructor for the police academy. I had to revamp the whole DT curriculum because it was like 1970s FBI
Okay. Let's
karate stuff.
let's not gloss over that, because that's actually a question I wanted to
Okay.
for you to go in depth in. So give us the details on that revamping, because that's very interesting.
Yeah. So when I got there as a DT instructor, um, I looked at the program and it had little to almost no ground defense stuff. The stand up stuff was it was okay. I mean, it was boxing, a couple of kicks here and there. Um, the other techniques were like old school, like wrist locks and like Aikido type,
Right.
throws and stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like you got to do a lot of practicing to get that off on somebody, like that's not happening because the problem with law enforcement and teaching them defensive tactics is we don't have that much time.
Mhm.
They do not give us much time to do it. And they basically want to check the box and be like, okay, this guy's been through defensive tactics. He passed. Okay, good. Next. The big emphasis is on firearms for liability purposes, right?
Right.
But my thing was, okay, how many times does a cop shoot somebody in their career, right? It's minimal. I mean, if you take the average across the country, it's, very tiny. I mean, I've never fired my firearm, while working.
Yeah.
But how many times does a cop put his hands on somebody? Every day.
All the time. Yeah.
Right. Every day. So why are we not putting more time into that training? I still don't have an answer for that. But what we did was, to get back to the question, we put a lot of ground defense stuff in. So how do I get up if I get taken down? If I end up on my back, how do I get off my back? If I'm on top, how do I control this person so I can put handcuffs on? Okay, so we did that as an individual, and then we did that in team tactics, right? Because
Right.
where I come from in New York, well, one, NYPD, we work with partners. So you always have your partner with you unless you're on a foot post or something. But if you call for backup, your backup is there, I don't know, a minute, at most.
Mhm.
It would be a little different for like, country sheriff's office or something like that, because they might be by themselves for a long period of time. But for us, the way we taught is we would teach individual, then we would teach team tactics, right? So
Right.
if I'm on top, how do you control the legs, right? How do I turn someone if they're on their back to their belly? How do I get their arms out from underneath them, right? Because that's the classic move. They'll lay on their chest and fold their arms, and then you see guys like pulling and sticking their baton in there, trying to get it out, And actually, Sifu Kevin, I mean, I must have been like 22 years old at the time, taught me a great technique, which has really saved me many times, is just putting your knee right in the back of the tricep and popping the hand out because it's so painful. As long as they're not on like some angel dust or something, that thing's going to pop out.
Mhm.
And I've used it so many times, and I've
Yeah.
showed so many cops that move.
Wow.
So it was a lot of revamping.
Yeah. I remember years ago. Um, now I don't think it was the Gracies. I think it was the Machados, and the
Okay.
video was cops trying to put one of the Machados trying to under control. And then they showed the Machado version, which was two people control the arms and one person control the legs.
Yeah.
And it was done in like 10 seconds. You
Yeah.
know that video?
Yeah.
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 Right. Well, see, to me, that's Jeet Kune philosophy in action.
Mhm.
the analysis of the situation and what have you. But so my question is this, as by itself, and this is a dumb way of putting it, but what we recognize as Jeet Kune Do, or what some people recognize as Jeet Kune Do. So in other words, straight lead, stop kick, or whatever. There is no way that that is enough for law enforcement control. There is no way, right? So
Yeah,
the second that you have to go somewhere else, you're going to get accused of not being Jeet Kune Do anymore, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, of
How
course.
stupid!
Yeah.
That's so stupid. When the philosophy says that you're supposed to you're supposed to analyze the situation and then act accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, why would I limit myself to, I mean, dare I say it, I don't even want to say it. See, Kevin told me not to say it. So stay away from groups.
Right.
But why would I limit myself to,
Yeah.
the standard, if you will?
Yeah.
Okay. If that is not going to apply to what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
As a cop, I can't sit there and I kind of said this before, you can't go through a boxing match with someone, if I give him a sidekick, straight sidekick to the lead leg or something. Okay, now what? I got to follow up with something, right? And it's not going to be hopefully it won't have to be a punch to the face. It might have to be a tackle. It might have to be, some sort of double leg takedown, whatever it might be, because my goal is not to fight.
Right.
My goal is to control.
Right.
So a combination, and really this is what we taught, was a combination of striking, clinches and takedowns, and then controlling on the ground and applying handcuffs. And that's what you have to do as a police officer. You hopefully you won't even have to get into the striking part, because it looks bad on camera, right? And we changed our stance from this to this.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because it on camera, when we're on the YouTube, it doesn't look as violent. But you can't just pummel people's faces in. That's not our goal. And the guys that do that, they get in trouble, right? Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Because that's not our goal. And I think a lot of cops end up losing that vision of what they're supposed to do, and they get emotionally involved. And usually it's newer cops that do that, but sometimes it's older cops. And and I think that's part of the training, is to dial that back in and, explain to them that we are here to control this person that, may or may not have broken the law, to put handcuffs on them and bring them to the judge.
Is there resistance often amongst the older officers to like the new mentality or the new way of doing things?
Always. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Those poor guys.
Yeah, cops are, stubborn, and they like to do the things, their way, and God forbid you tell them there's a better way to do it,
Right.
But
but that's somewhat of a JKD attitude for some people, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But wait, you've been instructed to stay away from that, so okay. Right. Right. But I mean, but there is this thing about, having no limitation is limitation. Right. And so if your intention is for Jeet Kune Do to be able to serve in all areas, serve all types of people, there is no way that you can then turn around and limit yourself to, well, it's just these 5 punches and these 4 kicks. Yeah. And that is the complete art. Well, and then ridiculous. you go to the founder of the art and you look at his notes, and for some reason, he found it of interest to look at grappling stuff.
Yeah.
To look at control maneuvers. But what, he was just doing that for entertainment?
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Definitely not. I mean, a lot of people accuse or assume that Bruce Lee didn't have grappling. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Because I remember as a kid when I watched Enter the Dragon and him and the Sammo Hung, that opening scene.
Mhm.
I mean, that sold it for me.
Yeah.
Watching that.
Yeah.
You know, this is what, I don't know, late 80s
Yeah.
when I was, you know, a young teen. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy is punching and he's grappling.
Yep.
That's amazing.
I just watched Joe Rogan wax effusive about that very fight scene and
He did what?
saying, but Joe Rogan was just complimenting that fight scene,
Oh,
you know, to the utmost, saying that look, it's a movie, but that's pretty much the first MMA fight that we ever saw,
yeah,
you know, on screen,
sure.
right? You know, and but even more so than that, when I watched Bruce Lee move in Game of Death with the Hapkido Grandmaster,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
I go, okay, you're not able to move like that just because you had some ideas for fight scene choreography. You
Right.
had to have been practicing.
Right. Right. Or you just learned it there because you applied, you know,
Yeah.
the I don't know, the guide of JKD, some
Yeah.
ridiculous nonsense like that. Oh, I
Yeah.
can defend against a knife, even though I've never done it before, because I'll just apply the principles of JKD. That's
Mhm.
insane.
Yeah.
Oh, I can defeat a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt at his game because
Yeah.
I'm applying the principles of JKD. That's
Yeah.
insane.
I could shoot a gun. If somebody pulled a gun on me and then there was another gun there that I could reach for, I could use that gun to defend myself because, well, I could apply the principles.
Right.
You know, yeah. It's brilliant.
To me, what kind of keeps me, I guess, centered with JKD is I reread over and over. You know, not at one sitting. Or, you know, I'll do it. You know, when I feel like I'm off the path, and
Mhm.
that's Liberate Yourself. You read
Yeah.
the Liberate Yourself article, the one that was published, because I know there's a whole bunch, but the
Mhm.
one that was published, you read that, it kind of puts you back on that path, and it's like, okay, this is what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And in nowhere in that article does he say stick to these 5 punches and kicks, and that's all you need.
Mhm. Yeah.
It actually says the opposite.
Right. In preparation for the Wednesday I Love Jeet Kune broadcast, I probably go to that article
Mm.
every week.
And
You
that,
know,
and by the way, your podcast this Wednesday was excellent. By the way, I really enjoyed it.
I it's 2 days later and I already have forgotten what I talked about. Right. You know what I found? You know what I found the other day? For how long was it? I think was it 8 years? I think it was 8 years. For 8 years, in the ancient days of the internet, I published a blog 3 times a week. For 8 years, I wrote a blog,
Wow.
to my school members, and we put it up. It's still there on. If anybody's interested in checking it out, it's at seafooddw.wordpress.com. So that tells you how long ago it was, right? Yeah, it's wordpress.com,
Yeah.
right? And I've been promising myself to move it over. Do you make websites too? Because you're all skilled in Canva. Can you make
So
websites?
yeah, um, I did make a website for myself, but I've changed, and I've gone with what is it called? Gym Desk.
97. Oh,
It's
okay.
called Gym Desk. Yeah, it kind of runs everything. It's got the website. It
Mhm.
runs, you know, all of my financing for the classes, the billing, you
Yeah.
know, all that stuff. So I just kind of put it all in one place. It's just easier
Okay.
to
Yeah.
manage.
I had it started out as quite an enjoyable experience being a licensee of an outfit. Like
Mm,
I really, right. But then um two things happened. One of them was who was making money on the front end, right?
mm.
And it wasn't being shared with me. And I was doing all the work on the
Okay.
front end, but not getting paid for it at all.
Oh
So
wow.
if somebody didn't sign up on the back end, then I worked for free,
Hmm.
but the licensor got paid,
Right.
you see, and I did all the work.
Right.
And then when the website became the generic website. So the only thing that changed was the bottom eighth, which was your specific information. But
Oh,
everything
okay.
above that. So if you looked at my school in Miami, it had the same pictures of the same people with the same testimonials
Mm.
as if you were the licensee in Charleston, South Carolina. Same website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I the second I saw it, I was like, okay, this is not going
Yeah.
to end well for me, right? So
Yeah.
I
No.
had to get out, right? Um,
Yeah.
but so we mentioned New Breed at the beginning of our talk because you
Hmm.
did train there for a while,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so now I want to ask you this then, because I have said this to people. Did you know my late dear departed friend Neil Colliff? Did you know Neil Colliff?
I did not. I did not know him. I knew of him, but
Okay.
I never met him. No.
Okay, well, so Neil was my introduction to New York and
Okay.
to and and to the first world as a kid from the islands, right? Um, and now, Neil had his place in Coral Springs, 45 minutes away from me for
Mm.
years, and so I go up there once a month and I teach a workshop up there. And I've always explained to people, Neil started in '82 with Inosano in UFC Irvine. I started in '83 with Inosano, UFC Irvine, and he and I would tour around together and spend countless seminars together. But we are not identical in how we do things. So I
Sure.
wanted to ask you about that, the experience of, because you started with Sifu Kevin Seaman, right?
Hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
and then you went to Nubri. So was there anything that stood out, comparing and contrasting the approaches?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely different places. Just the atmosphere was different. For example, Seafood Kevin's place in East West, and the reason why I went to New Breed is only because I graduated college and moved
Right.
back to New York. So Seafood Kevin's place was very much a competition type place.
Hmm.
He had a lot of boxers. He had a lot of
Hmm.
Muay Thai guys. Son Eric competed. So we did a lot. There was a lot of sparring, tons and tons of sparring there. I sparred all the time with them. We started doing Shudo, um, stuff like that. So it was very competitive. It was a competitive type of school.
Right.
New Breed was more of, I guess, a technical school, if that makes sense,
Okay.
where there was like maybe one or two guys that competed, but the rest of it was just really getting into technique and being real technical. And they were,
Hmm.
Alex and Luigi, I mean, unbelievable technical masters. If you have a question about something, anything from Wing Chun to Muay Thai, I mean, their technique is stellar. But not a competitive school.
Right.
So I think that would be the biggest difference between the two.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, my school was pretty much the same too. In fact, one time, a couple of people got interested, and I said, okay, well, we'll just turn Fridays into sparring night.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how we started Fight Club. And then we go to the competition. I had this one kid, Josh, 16-year-old kid, real soft spoken. And so we're backstage and I get to see the kid that Josh is going to have to go up against, right? Tough looking black kid. And he's shadow boxing. And I'm like, oh my God, Josh is going to get creamed. The black kid was a really good shadow boxer, but he could not fight.
He couldn't fight.
He
Okay.
couldn't fight, and I don't know where this animal came out from Josh, because right. And so, but I never got the taste for it, for being
Yeah.
like a fighting coach and
Yeah.
making that a priority. I just never got the taste for it. I'm not like a really good motivator guy.
Right.
I'd be a terrible personal trainer. I can't rah and
Yeah.
give me one more. You got this. No, I can't do that stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it takes. Yeah. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
It's totally different. I mean, I'm kind of like that too, where it's like, all right, well, if you don't have the motivation to do this, then sorry, like, like, I don't know what to tell you, bud.
Yeah.
Like, this is your thing. And that's kind of how I was when I was in the police academy teaching. We would, a lot of guys would, get in people's faces and yell and scream at them and, and all this stuff. And I was just like, well, listen, man, you don't care. You're going to fail. And, you can go be a plumber, an electrician, or, whatever. You're just not going to be a cop. I don't know what to tell you.
My good friend and student and dentist, I think he got it from, do you know Adam Chan, the Wing Chun Kung Fu guy? Do you know who that is?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, brilliant Wing Chun guy. I think Doc got it from him, but it's something about the job of the martial art instructor being to make good people dangerous to bad people.
I like that.
Right? Yeah. I was like, yeah, because what I realize sometimes is that if you say, well, my school was full of recreational martial artists. When you use the adjective recreational, all of a sudden it sounds like, oh, well, so you guys weren't serious. And that's not true. Right? It's just that nobody there was a professional fighter or an aspiring fighter. People were there to get fit and socialize, but it didn't mean that it was fluffy.
Right. But I mean, I think that's what most people are looking for. I mean, how many people are going to be fighting? Yeah, somebody might want to, their bucket list might be to do a fight, and that's great.
Yeah.
But how many people are going to be pro fighters?
Yeah.
And I think, and going back to the jiu-jitsu thing, I think that's a problem with a lot of jiu-jitsu schools today, is because, you have these sport jiu-jitsu schools, and you have guys that are, in their 40s or 50s, 60s that want to try jiu-jitsu, and they get matched up with some 22-year-old wrestler that, pops their shoulder out. And it's like, well, again, that's not what we're here for. There should be a separate class for that, just like in JKD. There should be a sparring class, but not heavy sparring. Heavy sparring should be a competition class. I had a guy that came into my class, and he's like, when do I get to start heavy sparring? And I was just looked at him, and I'm like, well, first of all, buddy, you're like in your 50s. You shouldn't be heavy sparring to begin with.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, it's not going to happen here.
Yeah.
We're not going to be heavy sparring.
What the
Probably
hell was he
never.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, we do a lot of situational sparring. We do a lot of, touch sparring, things of that nature.
Right.
But we're not getting into heavy sparring.
I remember, and you've experienced this as well. You'd be in seminar with Ajahn Chai, and he'd see somebody who had talent, and he would make the suggestion that person should fight. Right. And I think a lot of people misread that to think that what Ajahn Chai wanted was a room full of fighters, as opposed to his only way, to a certain extent, of getting people to test themselves was to prepare for a fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? See if you have heart, as he would say it. And so I'd had people come in to my school, and they'd be like, well, I want to fight. I go, okay. I go, but I want to do amateur stuff. And then I go, well, that's the problem right there. I go, if you want to be a fighter, and that's what you're telling me, you have to start thinking of yourself as a pro right now. Because I mean, you're somebody who's not unfamiliar with competition. I mean, high school wrestling and football and all that stuff, right? Amateurs have to train like pros because the risk is the same.
Yeah, I mean, the training is the same. The difference is you're just not as good of an athlete. I mean, that's really the difference.
Yeah.
Because I like you said, like I've trained with guys. I mean, even when Sifu Kevin's guys were going around and going to all these fights, in the early days, I would say it's probably early 2000s. I would travel with them and train with them, and so it's a lot of hard work, no matter whether you're in the UFC or
Yeah.
if you're just doing a local show.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you put in the most effort that you could possibly put in? I mean, it would be silly not to.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in some of the amateur stuff, you can get your face literally caved in,
Sure.
because I've
Sure.
seen it happen,
Sure.
you know?
Absolutely,
And
you can. Yep.
yeah.
Well, I think South Carolina had an amateur death years ago
Mhm.
at an MMA fight. So, I
Right.
mean, yeah, I mean, listen, you're going into a ring to fight. I don't know who this guy is that I'm fighting. He might be trying to kill me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to take it seriously. I mean, mindset, and that goes back to mindset. You know, a lot of people don't have the right mindset when they get into a confrontation. And that's something that I don't know how to drill that into people, but you have to find that tiger inside of you. And you know, especially when I teach like women's self-defense classes, I talk about this. I'm like, you are no longer the victim. You are now the predator. And that's the way you have to think about it. Someone is attacking you, your mindset has to change, right? From a defensive mindset to an offensive mindset. And I think for some people, it's really hard to do.
Yeah. Well, I did. That was actually another area that I wanted to touch on, because I remember very early on when I first moved here, 86. So this was very, very early. And there was this guy who had been featured on TV, and he was going to be doing a women's self-defense workshop at an aerobics gym. So that'll tell you how long ago it was, right?
They had the long socks up to their knees.
Yeah, right. So my student and I, his wife was a member of the gym, so we went up there just to see how these things are done. And the guy shows up like 15 minutes late with his little entourage, and then it's a self-defense seminar, but they go into the bathrooms to change into their karate gis, right? So then they come back out. So now everybody's barefooted and whatever. So now it's warm-up exercises. I'm like, okay. And then here's the horse stance. Okay. And then here's the punching. Right. And then here's the punching in Japanese count.
Well, listen, that goes back to what Bruce Lee said in the Liberate Yourself article, right?
Right.
These people have become little robots of what they've learned, and they don't deviate from it. They don't think for themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, how is that practical, teaching somebody women's self-defense from a horse stance?
Yeah.
Right. A horse stance is not even a fighting stance.
Right.
It's a training stance.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, they don't even understand their own martial art.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, no. The other thing too, you know, which I think is important with women's self-defense is you have to teach them things, depending on your time, you have to teach them things that they can apply and they can practice at home. Because if you show them a whole bunch of complicated movements, you know, show them like 10 different, you know, self-defense techniques from all different types of grabs and stuff, they're not going to remember any of that.
Right.
They're not going to be able to replicate that. Right.
What is your formula then? What is your formula? Because
so what I do
let me just tell you why I ask you this. Because here's how I remember women's self-defense being taught, right? If he grabs your wrist, or when he grabs your wrist, you do this. And I always thought, well, what about before? How the hell did he get into a position to grab your wrist?
Yeah.
Right. So what's your formula?
Well, so usually the way I do it is we'll have two different, I guess, ways of teaching self-defense. One will be like a seminar format where it will be like 2 hours long or something like that. And then the other one that I've done, which I think is a way better, is I'll do a series for the month. So we'll do like 4 classes throughout the entire month, and we'll build upon, each class builds upon it, and then we end with a cool scenario. But with all the physical techniques, there's lecture with it. And I talk about avoidance. I talk about awareness. I talk about, how you should, where you should go, who you should go with, things to avoid as far as like open drinks in a bar, right? Taking a drink from a stranger in a bar, walking down, taking the shortcut down the dark alleyway instead of taking the long way around where there's people, going out by yourself. I get that weird feeling about this person. It's just a weird feeling. I'm going to ignore it. No, don't ignore it. Go on the other side of the street, come up with some excuse to, get away from this person. So we talk about all that kind of stuff because to me, avoidance is the best thing, because if I never get into the confrontation, I'm always going to win.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that is a huge part of it. And I really stress that a lot. And then we'll get into some techniques, simple stuff. I try to use like a lot of elbow strikes, knee strikes, things like that when they're up close, only because it's so powerful and such a strong strike, the knees and elbows, that it's going to give them that opportunity to run away. And then we cover weapons as well. And when I say weapons, I mean, I'll talk about pepper spray. I'm not the biggest fan of pepper spray, but I know a lot of women carry it. So my first question to them is, have you ever sprayed it? Have you ever tried to spray pepper spray at a target? And everyone's like, no. So you got to go on Amazon. They have inert pepper spray. Buy some inert pepper spray, hang up a paper target of your husband or something, and spray it. Yeah. Right. And what's going to happen is when you spray it, it's going to go all over the place. Right. You've got to practice this stuff. You can't just buy it and think that it's just going to happen. Yeah. So that's my approach on it.
Okay. So I'm going to confess something to you privately, because nobody will ever see this video.
Okay.
In teaching women self-defense, the glee on their faces when they hit with the elbow and the knee, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not that I don't enjoy it, because it is empowering, but I don't feel 100% right about it, because it's almost as if they think, well, now I'm deadly, because they have so much fun with it, know, and I don't want to burst their bubble and go, this doesn't make you a killer.
Right.
You still have to have a mind. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. No, No, I'm not ashamed to tell them that. Yeah. No, I do. I tell them, I'm like, listen, this is last resort stuff.
Right.
And that one knee may not work. That one elbow may not work. You're not going to palm strike someone in the nose and then the nose goes into the brain and then the person dies, right? That's not a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's sometimes the toughest thing to teach to people who aren't dedicated to continual training, right? Is that, self-defense is a state of mind.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing, because for whatever reason, I think the idea that karate will teach you tricks of self-defense, because that used to be the magazine ad years ago, right? Karate tricks of self-defense. And so if you learn these tricks, which the average assailant doesn't know, you're good. So all you had to do was to go to a workshop and learn the tricks and forget practicing, forget retaining, right? No. I think that idea is still prevalent out there.
Sure, of course it is. Yeah, because people want instant, everything.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I tell them that. And I tell everyone that. It's like, it's like learning a language, right? Yeah. If I'm going to learn German, if I go to one class, I can't speak German.
Right.
And martial arts and self-defense is the same thing. Right? You have to dedicate many, many, many years, and for some of us even longer, to get good at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and you're never going to be at the point where you're like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, if you feel like you're at that point where you say, oh, I'm good, I don't need to learn anything.
Yeah.
You got a lot to learn.
So, as a student of the guy who has written, I would say in the JKD world, the preeminent book on mindset, Mr. Kevin Seaman, how do you convey? There we go. Right. Okay. So, what did he teach you, and how do you convey the importance of mindset to everybody that falls under your sphere of influence?
Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff, and I would say probably the biggest thing that I got from Sifu Kevin is when you are picturing yourself, right? Professional athletes will do this, or they will actually close their eyes and think about being successful in a situation, right? So if you're like the quarterback, you'll think about throwing that pass, to score the touchdown to win the game. So what I tell people is you have to sit down and you have to picture in your mind, right, you being successful at a confrontation. Okay. You have to convince yourself that I can survive this confrontation. I can, live. And that's huge, because if you do a study on police officers that have survived deadly situations,
Mm-hmm.
they will talk about how they've talked themselves into staying alive. They've used their mind to keep their body going. And it's amazing. Every single one of these stories, they all have that one thing in common. It's I'm going to get married next weekend. I'm not going to let my wife down. I'm surviving this, and I'm walking her down the aisle. I have tickets to bring my son to a concert. We're going to that concert. This is not going to stop me. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. It's that non-giving up mental attitude that is going to keep you alive. And it's that mindset. It's that survivor mindset that you have to have. And if you don't,
that's the thing, man. If I could bottle that or turn that into pill form, I don't even know if I would sell it. I think I would just give it away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's God, because that's it. And a lot of times I think somebody who is possessed of the right mindset, now you will know better than I will. Don't they send out the vibe that they are possessed of the correct mindset? And so would-be predators kind of leave them alone?
Yeah. So that's something that I talk about with the women's self-defense class, right? We talk about our posture. We talk about how we present ourselves to others.
Right.
Am I a soft target or am I a hard target?
Right.
Am I walking with my shoulders back and my chest out, my head held high, or am I slunched over, distracted by this thing? Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what a predator is looking for.
Yeah.
Right. You look at, National Geographic, and the lion goes after what? The weak link. Mm-hmm. Right. He's going to go after, the gazelle with the broken leg. Right. Yeah. It's the same thing with human beings, right? Human beings are going to go after the person that they think they can get away with it.
Right.
Right. They're not going to go after the person that they can't get away with it. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. They're going to go after that person that they think they can isolate and control. And that's what they want to do. Isolate and control you.
Yeah. I sit on the train and the bus every week and watch who's aware and who's not.
Yeah.
I even get on the train early and go down to the starting point so I can pick my seat. Right.
Get a good view.
Yeah. Right. Because I have to be able to control when people get on and off. I have to be able to see it all.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and like anything's going to happen to me. I mean, no, this is my coverage. Who's going to attack the Rasta guy? right?
Yeah.
There's no way, right? You know, that's like the greatest self-defense, right?
Yeah. They're like, I'm not gonna touch Bob Marley over there. What?
Yeah, yeah, right. No, nobody
Right.
is gonna mess with me, right? So we talked about comparing and contrasting between East West and New Breed. Compare and contrast because you've trained under what, like 5 different jujitsu sources, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so is there something similar or what?
Sure. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, again, something against my control, training other different jujitsu places, which has kind of led me to the predicament that I'm in right now. I kind of feel like John Belushi's character in Animal House. 7 years of college down the drain, you know? Like, I've been a brown belt for a long time.
Yeah,
Wait, I mean, I really don't care, but
right.
I think the difference between the schools, again, it goes from that competition feel to maybe more of the self-defense feel, you know, and is it just you know, like weekend warrior guys that are just having a good time that want to learn an art and enjoy themselves, or is it guys that, you know, think they're going to the Olympics and, you know, so it's those different feels that you get. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll walk into a gym, and if I get that heavy competition feel, I'll turn around and walk out because I'm not interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not interested in you know, I'm getting hurt all the time.
Right.
In fact, my jujitsu professor yells at me all the time. He's like, "You got to slow it down, right?" It's that old high school wrestling mentality that I still have in my head. I can't. Thanks, coach.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's like, you know, I'm 47 and I'm getting these injuries that just don't heal anymore. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so to me, I'm not interested in that competition stuff. You know, I'm not interested in having to defend myself against some 22-year-old, you know, that's in college wrestling and, you know, has something to prove.
Right.
I'm more interested in going slow, learning, being able to apply things, you know, and then being able to teach that to other people. So I think I've done a pretty good job of picking the right schools over the years, you know, to meet that goal.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that black belt in jiu-jitsu isn't the goal, but but you're not beating yourself up that you've been a brown belt for a while.
No, because again, to me, like, yeah, listen, I'd be lying to you if I told you I didn't want my black belt.
Right.
But you know, the sacrifices that I have made and haven't made for that are relevant to my life.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, you know, I got my brown belt when my son was born in what was that, 2014. Okay. My life changed
Yeah.
when I had my son.
Yeah.
You know, that my attention was towards family and not towards, you know, being at jiu-jitsu five nights a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my daughter. Then I was teaching at the police academy, which was a lot of overtime and all that. So, you know, my priorities changed, but I never stopped. Right. So to me, it's like, okay, if I get my black belt, great. But the thing is I'm never going to stop. So if I don't get it, it's not a big deal to me, because I'm going to keep doing this thing
Mm-hmm.
called martial arts until, you know,
well,
until
yeah,
it's over.
that
You know?
that's practicing the art of detachment.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's important to you, but it's not like, yeah, I'm gonna commit suicide if I don't
Right. Yeah,
get
no.
this thing or whatever, and it's an external thing. Anyhow, I do have to bring this up, right? I do have to bring this up. Mr. Fox, who
Oh boy.
said to you, who said to you, right?
I wonder if my brother and sister are listening to this right
Right,
now.
right. So I was never diagnosed as a kid. My diagnosis came actually about 8 or 9 years ago.
Okay. Oh,
Right?
wow.
Yeah. So when I reflect, when I look back at me in school and what have you, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Right. So, but tell everybody, so tell everybody what it was that you said to me about Mr. Fox.
So, yeah. So as a kid, I had a lot of frustration with school. Um, it was like, oh, this kid is lazy. I mean, this is what, like 1980. This kid is lazy. He doesn't, want to do schoolwork. But meanwhile, I was, trying like crazy to try and learn, right? Turns out I had a learning disability. Parents got me tested. We got like, special, extended test times and all this stuff, right? That they offer to you. I still was never a great student. I still can't spell, right? So in high school, you got your guidance counselors that are supposed to, I don't know, guide you. And we had this guy, Mr. Fox, and he sits me down, and we're probably like a junior in high school, and he tells me, "Yeah, no, college is not for you because you shouldn't go to college." I was like, "What? You're not supposed to tell me that. Like, you're supposed to like encourage me to do my best or whatever." But that was the worst thing, or maybe the best thing that guy could have said to me, because when he said that to me, I was like, "F you, Mr. Fox. I'm going to college."
Yeah.
And I went to college, got a degree, took me an extra semester, got a degree. And then when I was in the NYPD and the Port Authority, I went to college again and I got a master's degree. So I was like,
I would have.
don't tell me I can't do something, dude.
I would have photocopied. I would have photocopied my certificates and mailed them to damn Mr. Fox.
Yeah, well, he was probably dead by then. He was old.
Yeah, but that's interesting though, because I wonder, right? Because when I moved here in '86 and started to become somewhat aware, when I first started teaching, it was adults only, and then somebody says, "Oh, my kid has always wanted to this and whatever," and I said, "Okay, well, bring your kid to class with you." And almost immediately realized this is not helping the kid at all. So we said, okay, well, they got to be at least 10 years old. And then the 10-year-old has what? A 7-year-old sibling. So then we dropped it down to 7, right? And then my girlfriend at the time, when she and I started dating and she started teaching at the school, she had a 4-year-old. So I said, okay, Ernie Reyes Sr. has this program called Little Dragons. I go, if anybody should be teaching a program called Little Dragons, it's a Jeet Kune school.
Of
Right?
course.
Okay, right? So I said, but you're going to be in charge of it, not me.
Yeah.
Right? So we set it up and gangbusters. Okay. So the first belt test, because we used their belt. They were the only group, that 4-year-old kids that used belts. But in my infinite wisdom, at their first belt test, I was there to do the testing.
Okay.
They freaked out. They're like, "Who the hell is this? He's not my
never
teacher.
saw you. Yeah.
I don't know him."
Right? Oh my god!
So that was the end of me and Little Dragons. Right?
Yeah.
But it was great, because I think that if we get a hold of them early enough, I don't know. So my whole point about telling you this is that when I got to the States, that's when I started hearing all about this ADD and ADHD and what have you. And I was like, is this really true? Or is this just how to get your kids pumped on drugs?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what's your experience of it?
Yeah, I mean that's a valid question. I mean, no, it's legit. I mean, it's a real thing. I obviously I'm not a doctor, but I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes, experienced it. It's a real thing. I mean, the last thing you want to do is put a child on drugs, but when it comes down to it, if that's the only thing that you have left, what else are you gonna do? You know, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean,
So
I remember I was doing a seminar in Mississippi. This was back in the '90s and what have you, and just in casual conversation, the seminar host said to me, we were talking about something. He goes, yeah, all our kids are on Ritalin, and it was just like a throwaway statement, you know.
right, so normal, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
Well, so I think that's like more of like an old school thought, because now, I mean, there's so many kids have been on it now for such a long period of time, you know, that's really gone through the test of time, and it's it seems to be very effective.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, I told you that Neil was my introduction to New York and what have you. In all honesty, after 3 weeks in California with Neil, I went back to Barbados and I told everybody, you know, in the movies we see these people called New Yorkers. I go, they're real. I mean, I think Neil was born and raised in Bayside, Queens.
Okay, yeah.
So, right. So the first time I went to New York and Neil picks me up at the airport, he's in this Trans Am, this white Trans Am with the big eagle or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Neil's got the long hair and the big gold chain and what have you. It took me, Paul, maybe about 3 or 4 years to muster up the confidence to ask Neil, what kind of Italian name is Cauliffe? He goes, I'm a Jew. But so that's when I realized there's a thing called a New Yorker. It doesn't matter what your ethnic origin is. There's a thing called a New Yorker. And I don't know where I got it from, but I still have an obsession with things New York. So Neil's widow, Helena, and we talk about it all the time. I turned her on to a movie. You're too young to know about it, but it's called Crossing Delancey. And it's about the Lower East Side, right? Delancey, where Delancey and Essex intersect and what have you, right? Okay. So whenever I have a New Yorker on the program with me, right? And if I have law enforcement people, I like to ask them. My unscholarly opinion is that Blue Bloods is the favorite TV series for NYPD personnel.
Never saw it.
What is wrong with you? Right?
I lived it. What do I got to watch it for on TV?
Oh man, right?
I don't. You know what? I might have seen, like, because I like Tom Selleck. I'm a big Magnum PI fan.
Okay.
So I might have seen like an episode or two, but
tell me you didn't watch CSI New York.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, I don't watch any of those shows. I don't really watch TV, to be honest with you. You know, I'll watch like some series on Netflix or something like that. But yeah, I'm not. No, I never really saw it. I like Tom Selleck's character on it. Okay. I mean, I've seen like clips and stuff of that. I think that's real old school New York. You know, the old Irish cop, and I mean, there definitely were people like that, without a doubt.
If you ever want to see what I think is one of the best New York cop movies ever, it's a Jamie Lee Curtis movie called Blue Steel.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Keep that in
I
mind.
like Fort Apache is one of my favorites.
Oh man,
with Paul Newman.
Yeah.
That's old school NYPD. Like, I love that.
You're quite right. Okay, all right. Let's finish with this. Best and worst things. Do it in whatever order you want about being a New Yorker.
Best and worst things. Okay. I mean, I guess the best things. makes you tough.
Yeah.
It gives you a worldly view of life. Experience a lot of different ethnicities, races, religions, all that. You're really exposed to everything.
Mm-hmm.
The worst things, I would say, makes you irritable. Don't like
Yeah.
crowds.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, it burns you out, man. It burns you out quick. You know, you're an NYPD cop, you get burned out fast. It's nonstop. You know, we'd be on the radio and, you know, the police radio, from the moment you started your shift to the moment you stopped, it was nonstop.
Yeah.
Nonstop. They're holding calls, waiting for you to finish up one to answer another. You know, you're lucky
Mm-hmm.
you got time to eat a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Is, you know, so it New York burns you out. In my opinion, it burns you. And that's kind of why we moved down here to South Carolina. It was,
But I got a bone to pick with you about that. Why didn't you move to Florida? This is where all the New York cops come.
oh, well, I'll give you my wife's phone number and you could pick that bone with her, because I wanted to move to Florida,
Ah.
but she says it's too hot. It's too hot.
Oh, right. Like South Carolina isn't? Come on. What is she
I just
talking
work
about?
here. I just work here. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh man. Yeah.
But we love Charleston. It's beautiful. It's a
Oh
beautiful
yeah.
city.
Yeah.
The people here are great. So, I mean, we couldn't be happier where we're at right now.
What's the JKD scene like there? Was there
There
anybody
is
there
no
before?
JKD scene. I am the only JKD instructor in the Charleston area. That's it.
Wow.
Yep. That's kind of why I started JKD Charleston, because there was no JKD. Really, the only martial arts in the area is, there's a bunch of jiu-jitsu places.
Right.
There's a bunch of what you would, for lack of a better term, you know, McDojo karate places,
Mm-hmm.
Taekwondo type places. There's one Muay Thai place I know of. There's a Krav place, and that's it.
Wow.
That's it. So, you know, that kind of encouraged me. I'm like, you know what? I start JKD down here. Nobody has JKD down here. This is crazy. So I started. I think there's one. I think what they called, like, in the upstate. There's one up in Myrtle Beach. But yeah, in the Charleston area.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
it.
yeah. What's in Rick McElroy? Where's
I don't know him.
Wait. Let me make sure I got my states right. Where's Hilton Head? North or South Carolina?
Hilton Head is north, isn't it?
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. See.
Yeah.
I'm
There's Valor. Valor is up in Myrtle Beach, I believe.
okay.
And then there's like maybe one or two more that are like kind of in like what they call the upstate in South Carolina. But in the Charleston area, there's nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I still
No collie, nothing.
Still don't know what to make of that. You know.
I think it's a problem with the JKD marketing.
Yeah.
You know, BJJ had great marketing when it came out, and
I mean, they didn't even have to market. They just had to point to UFC 1.
Yeah.
You know, and that would have been it.
Yeah. If I opened a jiu-jitsu school, I'm sure I would have, 20 students in a week.
Mm-hmm.
They just walk in, because it's like karate was in the 80s. It's just people just automatically are drawn to it. And trying to explain to people what Jeet Kune is, it's difficult. There's people that don't even know what Bruce Lee is. I mean, there's kids nowadays. I'm like, have you ever heard of Bruce Lee? They're like, no. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, those kids, I refuse to talk to them.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I'm kidding. But all that indicates to me, Paul. Tell me what you think of this. Is there's still work to be done then?
Oh, there's plenty of work to be done. There's plenty of work, and I know, and one of the things, and you hit it right on the head in the beginning when we talked about a movie. And I think you really need to have a non-Bruce Lee Jeet Kune movie. And what I mean by that is Bruce Lee is not the star of the movie.
Right.
Yes, of course, he's going to be mentioned in it.
Right.
Because
So not a biopic. Yeah.
But it's not a biopic, right? You know, you have something like what you were talking about, a young kid, you know, that maybe goes through a struggle, finds JKD and sees the whole philosophy behind it, not just the punches and kicks, and, you know, changes their life. And that's, you know, I mean, Krav Maga did it with enough.
Yeah.
I mean, no one knew what Krav Maga was until Jenny from the block did it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and
you know, JKD needs that.
You know, and a few weeks ago, Jeet Kune was actually mentioned in a Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves interview.
Really?
Yes. Right. So the girl says to Chad, the interviewer says to Chad, and I know you taught Jeet Kune at the Inasano Academy. And there is a visceral reaction from Keanu Reeves when the words Jeet Kune and Inasano Academy are mentioned.
Oh, wow. I got to see this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll see which clip it was. Because I said last week, I think with Russell, I said, I don't really intend to watch John Wick 4.
Yes, I remember you said that. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then so I have a new student. His mom is the biggest John Wick fan, and so she was talking to me about it. And then I watched the interviews, and then I started to think, maybe I should relent and go watch it. And then I saw a review of it from someone whose opinion on a lot of things I actually trust. And and I thought, nah, probably not. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Right. But
I'll watch it when it comes out on Netflix.
Right. I'll watch it when they incorporate my idea, which is that he rejects violence, and so he no longer carries weapons. But when he gets into a situation, he disarms people and he kills them with their own weapon.
Oh, that sounds great.
Right. And then he drops the weapon and he moves on. But he doesn't carry any himself.
Okay.
That's my idea, right, for John Wick. So if they ever hear this and they incorporate that into I'll watch it.
That'll be great. Yeah, I'll watch that too. Sure. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right, Paul, thanks very much for hanging out with me. I know you probably had to work some stuff around in your schedule and what have you. So I really appreciate your taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. This was great. It's such an honor to be on here. I really appreciate the invite.
My pleasure. All right, man. Okay, we'll do it again. We'll do it again when you have kid number 3, because I know you're not done.
Oh my God! Why would you say that? Oh my God! My wife has been busting my chops about this. It's not happening. It's not happening. I got 2 dogs, 2 kids, and a wife. That's it.
Yeah, well, she'll never see this show, so we don't have to worry. No, right?
No, not interested.
All right, my friend. You take care. Talk soon.
All right. Thank you, C3. Bye.
Okay. I just got him in trouble. All right, folks. That was episode 259 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues with Paul Nunzio of JKD Charleston. So you guys know the deal. Comment, like, subscribe, ask questions if you want. I'll ask Paul to review and see if there's anything he needs to answer. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. At paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami, you can get the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1, raw but edited version, paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami. If you are, well, actually, I think there was no Facebook live stream for some reason. So here on the YouTube, if you just maneuver up and click the join button, you can see the different levels of membership that we have here on the YouTube, and everything goes to supporting the show and helping us to improve the product that we put out. Another way to support the show is at jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this, the JKD Notables coffee mug, also available in garment form. t-shirt, sweatshirt, long sleeve, short sleeve, hoodie, that kind of good stuff. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Do dialogues. Next Friday is Good Friday. So we will have, we'll preempt the show for next Friday, but we will be here on Wednesday with another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. Take a break next Wednesday, and then we'll be on, that would be, let's see, 7:38, the 7th, on the 14th with none other than the notorious Mick Tully. Right. So until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebels, signing off. You guys have a great weekend. Stay safe. Talk soon.